Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining today's webinar. I'm Lauren Milojevic. I'm the Director of Marketing and Business Development at Simplify. Today, we're excited to have our new VP of Platform and Technology, Eric Blondin. He'll be discussing key considerations when migrating to SAP BW for HANA or SAP HANA Native Data Warehouse. Please feel free to reach out to Eric or myself after the webinar with any questions. And now I will hand it over to you, Eric. Thanks.
Thank you, Lauren. So good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you're from today. So very happy to have all of you on this webinar. So I'm sure some of you are getting webinar sickness over the past 3 months. We've all been watching webinars online, even myself. In the past few months, I was supposed to be presenting at SAP Insider in March and then Sapphire in May. As you may know, Sapphire is actually happening online right now. I'm actually going to mention it a bit further on in my presentation. There's 1 or 2 sessions I think you'd like to watch after we've gone through my presentation. And I was supposed to be in SAP Insider presenting in front of people again in June out of Amsterdam. So obviously all of those are not happening. But I'm quite happy to be presenting it to you, even though getting as much interaction as being at those events won't be as easy. But please do not hesitate to ask questions. There's a chat window to the bottom right of your screen normally. And so ask your questions there. Lauren, who just introduced me, will be watching that. And as we go forward in some spots during the presentation, if there are questions, I'll be able to answer them. Or you can wait till the end and ask your questions at that point. But really do not hesitate. That's what this webinar is here for. So without further delay, let's get into the subject of our presentation today. So here we are. So main subjects we'll be going through. First of all, obviously an introduction. I don't know if all of you know who Simplify is, but really a quick introduction as to who Simplify is and who I am. I've looked quickly who was logging on. I know a few names, some others I do not. So you may or may not know about us. So I'll be introducing us. Then obviously we want to talk about BW for SQL Data Warehouse or even Data Warehouse Cloud. That kind of got added up to my subject a bit later on. But before you select a solution, you have to have an idea about your strategy. So this is what we'll be briefly talking about here. Then a brief history. I don't know how many of you have been in the data warehouse field for a long time, but there's quite a history behind it. Where does BW come out of? Where does SQL data warehousing come out of? To make a good decision and an informed decision as to where should I go, it's always, in my mind, best to understand where did it come from. So this is where we're going to cover a bit the history of data warehousing and BW itself. And then we'll go into your current options in an SAP landscape for data warehousing. So this is where we're going to quickly go through BW4, SQL Data Warehouse, and Data Warehouse Cloud as well. And if we do have some time in the end, I will be doing a quick demo on Data Warehouse Cloud and show you how it integrates on all of this and how it can actually enhance the rest of your landscape. I figured designing a data warehouse on the other two is not something that would add a lot of value through a quick 10-minute demo, but Data Warehouse Cloud, there's some nice things we can quickly show. Excuse me, I cannot click enter when I change slides. I have to click. So let's Simplify. So Simplify, we are 100% focused on analytics, planning, and consolidation. Almost all of our consultants are CPAs or MBAs with a lot of financial background. I'm technically the exception in the whole team. And then the products we specialize on, obviously SAP Analytics Cloud, we've been investing a lot of effort on this solution over the past 2-3 years. Group reporting, which is the up and coming consolidation solution from SAP. BW, HANA, Data Warehouse Cloud, and integration with SAP solutions from a data perspective. Obviously, that's our discussion today, so it's a good thing we have experience on it. And BPC, Business Objects, they're more of the established solutions, on-premise solutions from SAP. We have a lot of experience on those, although those are not the ones we'll be talking about during the presentation today. We implement those solutions, we help you get trained on it, and we also help you augment your different projects on these solutions. We are based in Chicago, although myself, I am in Canada, and we do cover mainly US Midwest and Northeast regions of North America. Our leadership team, so John, who's our managing partner, sales and solution, Lauren, who you actually heard, Beth McBreen, who's our senior solution director, does a lot of SAC projects and BPC projects nowadays. Myself, more on the platform and technology, and then Noel and Jim on the advisory and HR side of things. Myself, so I mentioned earlier, I'm really on a platform and technology, so I have close to 20 years experience on BW, business objects, all those standard SAP solutions, but I actually started in '96 in the data warehouse field, where I was not working on SAP solutions. Actually, BW did not exist at all. We'll see that shortly in the BW history. And so I implemented data warehouses, SQL data warehouses, using mainly Oracle in those days, who was the leader in database-based data warehouses, building on PL SQL and so forth. So most of my time since then has been on BI solutions and planning solutions, really mainly around SAP technologies. And we also are recognized as finance and analytics experts by SAP, and we are engaged in a lot of opportunities to help them show, demonstrate, and organize events around these solutions on SAP landscapes. And we have built and run best-in-class workshops with SAP on this subject. You may even have joined our annual, well, it was a webinar this year. Typically, it's our annual event in person. But this year was our annual event last week. Some portions of it are actually available now online if you go on our website. One of our main goals, and really that's something we do every time we go on any projects. We are a small boutique firm, so our goal is 100% referenceable clients. We cannot afford to just do a project and move out. We need our customers to appreciate, see the value in what we're doing, and really help us continue into our organic growth. Here we have a few happy customers we've actually worked with over the past few years. And one of the things we do use to really get and work with our customers is our pre-packaged solutions. Obviously, right now, a lot of them are based off Analytics Cloud, lots of them on planning. So if you currently have BPC or any competing planning solutions, we have built pre-packaged solutions that we can implement in weeks that cover a lot of planning subjects on Analytics Cloud. And most of our references that we saw earlier, our customers, we did implement it. And then we can help you train BI Cloud conversion. So if you have business objects today, we've helped customers migrate to Analytics Cloud instead. What's the feasibility of it? What kind of effort is going to be required? And what's a fit gap? Are there functionalities that will be missing? And planning consolidation, cloud conversions, obviously. So from BPC or competing products to Analytics Cloud, we've done quite a few of them and help customers get trained. On my end, also a lot of reporting analytics, which we help our customers implement. So these are prepackaged solutions on Analytics Cloud. Obviously, you'll see as I go forward, Data Warehouse Cloud is quite recent, but we are planning on investing quite a bit and coming up with similar prepackaged solutions over the next, I'd say, year using Data Warehouse Cloud. So that's pretty much it for Simplify. I hope I didn't take too much of your time on that particular subject, but I always find it very useful for everyone to understand who they're talking to and what we're actually getting into. So what is a data strategy? Before you start selecting a data warehouse strategy, which is actually purely technology, so what technology are you going to use? And I agree, this is the subject of our presentation today, but you need an overall data strategy. If you do not, you can still select a technology, but you may have a few challenges, and the chances of success are much lower if you do not have one. So what what's the kind of data strategy I'm talking about? So we often say people, process, technology. So this is a variation on this one. So first of all, you need your business strategy. Before you can start talking about technology and how to solve with that technology, you need to understand what you are solving. Okay, is it a business strategy? You need your business strategy. So what are your company's priorities? If you don't even know what the priorities are, how can you define the proper technical strategy for it? What's the organization? How's the governance set up there? So who will need to be involved to be sure you have a proper solution that really answers what the business needs, and what are the metrics they want to track or they need to track. So sometimes they will not know what they need to track, but you need to figure out what are those main metrics before you start talking about technology, because technology solves business requirements. If you do not know what your business needs, obviously your technology is going to be a lot of money into nice tools, but probably not solving much for your business. Then once you figured out your business strategy, and this is really something for on the finance side, for example, this is something where Simplify can help you figure out, but where we get involved a lot is on the operational strategy. What are your data process? How do you define your data process? How is your data maintained? Because just a basic planning solution, and like we do a lot of them, you need to figure out how your data is going to be maintained, all those processes. If you have incomplete data or invalid data, obviously you're not going to get a good data solution in the end, because initially the data that was entered, the data that was maintained, did not offer really much value. So you need to fix it in the end. If you need to fix it on the technical side, obviously you're wasting a lot of effort, and in the end people will not trust that data, because in the system they see something, in the final solution they see something else. Obviously on the operational level it will evolve, so if there's a lot of changes here on the basic data information, well, the moment they change anything on the operational side, suddenly this will break, and this is where you have so much trouble building trust in your data. Functional processes. So if you have properly defined your functional processes, again, I'm obviously going to bring it back to where we have a lot of expertise. What's the functional process in planning? How do you define the whole planning process? If you don't understand how planning is organized, in the end, when you analyze your planning results, you may not get the information you want. And how have you defined your quality strategy? Quality can be your product, but can be in your process. So are you properly following all those processes that you've implemented so that you have quality data that you can actually use? This is still at the operational level. We're not yet in the IT side. And finally, compliance. You've built all of this. You have a lot of rules to respect. How is that implemented within your company? So all these capabilities are needed to, first of all, meet your business outcomes that you need, but also to be enabled by technology afterward. Technology has to be seen as an enabler. If you do not have the proper process strategy, well, the technology won't enable much. They actually may enhance your mistakes, and going forward, obviously, you're going to be stuck. So once you have all of this maintained, this is when you can start talking about data architecture. You cannot talk about data architecture if you do not know what your priorities are, what your functional processes are, and how your data quality is maintained. So you define your data architecture, and then your data management applications. Which ones do you need? This is the main subject we have today. But what I really wanted to bring up is, before you get to this, you need to have worked on all these things, or else you get up with a big project that costs a lot of money, and in the end you figure out, why did we put so much money in BI? Why did we put so much money in the data warehouse? I'm sure if you've been in the field a while, These are questions you've heard in the past. So once you have defined your data strategy, this is where it's very important that since it's a strategy, data management is an organizational capability. It's not one project. You do not generate a data warehouse project and then once it's done, you start building on it. Again, I've been in this field for 20 years. I've been saying the same thing for 20 years. So hope you haven't been to too many of my presentations, but this is the basics of it. And still it's missing in a lot of implementations. And if you do not have that over time, even if your data warehouse is a big success today, well, once you get through it in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years, if you haven't organized your enterprise around it, around a data strategy, it's going to have lost its value. And in 2, 3, 4, some of you, and I'm sure some of you will kind of recognize the experience. You have a data warehouse you've had for 10 years. No one uses it anymore. Why? Because it didn't follow the business. It didn't evolve. It was good when it came out initially, but it does things we don't even care about anymore because that's not how our business is. So the business continued to evolve, but the data strategy didn't. And that's where those data management practices need to be embedded in the business, in IT as well. Obviously, these need to communicate, and they need to be in your operations processes we talked earlier, so that all three together can really evolve together and have a data strategy that will answer your business requirements going forward. And once all this works, this is when data confidence becomes high within the company. If everyone is integrated, everyone knows how decisions have been taken, people will be confident in this and your data, and you're really going to be able to capitalize on it and start building value and reconnaissance towards your data warehouse. And really, that's another one. Data management is used as a long-term function. And let's be careful. Long-term function has often been seen as everything will take long to function. That's not what it means. It's actually a long-term function is this. You need to plan it long term. If you change the strategy, you need to see in 2 years, where should we be? Not this requirement you just admitted will be answered in 2 years. That's not how it works. A requirement that comes in today, in 3 months nowadays, it's too late. People will have built Excel templates that cover it, access databases on their laptops. They'll have done anything because 3 months is too long. So you need to plan to have the capability and the agility that will really enable you to really manage your data strategy at the same speed as your business is going. If you're slower, it's not going to work. Okay. One thing that comes from McKinsey & Company that I got that out of an SAP presentation, but data-driven organizations are 23 times more likely to acquire customers, 6 times as likely to retain those customers, and 19 times more likely to be profitable as a result. So that's a lot of value, but that means you need to manage your company, not just build a data warehouse. That's not what data-driven means. And that was really the whole point of this quick introduction on what is a data strategy. Now that we have that, let's go into the bulk of our subject today, talking about the SAP data warehouse world. But yes, forgot, I integrated that slide last night. So I mentioned earlier, this week, Sapphire Now, which was supposed to be in May. Some of you may know that event. In North America, it's actually in May in Orlando. I've been going there for the past few years, and it's a great event to know what direction SAP is taking. So not the best techie conference, but the best conference to understand the vision SAP has, and in some cases understand the vision the market has, which SAP is trying to see how to fit in. So right now we have Sapphire Now happening, and I wanted to do a small call out once we're done with this webinar today. There's a little 20-minute video that was put online yesterday with Nate Silver. So you may or may not know Nate Silver. I won't introduce him. I have the summary that came straight out of the Sapphire webpage, but they talk about data, obviously, as it relates to COVID-19, but other subjects in politics and sports, stock market, very interesting discussion between Nate Silver and SAP North America President for SAP, DJ Pauni. So very great discussion. Honestly, once we're done here, I really recommend go and have a look there. And there's plenty of other subjects you might find interesting. So that's done for a very long introduction. So brief history of data warehousing. So as I mentioned earlier, when you want to decide, first I talked about where are you in terms of data strategy. So we discovered that. Where's your business position? How are your operations organized? And then you need to decide your technology. But once you decide your technology, it's always good to understand where did it come from? What does it try to solve, so that we can make the right decisions. Data warehousing is a field all by itself, and SAP, obviously, like any data generating solutions, needs to figure out a way how to manage that information and build their own data warehousing strategy. So one of the things we're actually going to be doing is go through data warehousing strategy where it is today, and from a high level, please. There are university programs on that subject today. So I'll be spending probably 5 minutes on the history of data warehousing. So do not come back to me that I took shortcuts. I am taking shortcuts. 5 minutes to cover a complete university program is not a lot. But it will give you, I think, a nice vision of when data warehousing started, what were the main ideas behind it. And afterward, we're going to go through a similar history, but around SAP BW history and where it is today and where it's going. Okay. And typically, well, this is why I like to have be in front of a room. That's where I'd look at the room, see if anyone had comment questions right now. But I think there are none in the chat, so I will continue on. So you may or may not know, the data warehouse today is 28. So, well, I'm not talking about the date, I'm only talking about the year. So the data warehouse concept as it is known today was first coined in 1992. Although the term was used in the 70s, 80s, it really became something that companies really worked to implement in 1992. Inman, so once again, very quick shortcuts. There are books on this guy. So right now, this is all I'm saying about him. Bill Inman defined his idea of what a data warehouse is. He defined a strategy for a centralized data warehouse with a top-down approach. So you define all your data within your company, define your corporate data warehouse, and start building it. So this is where the huge data warehouse projects that happened in the 90s and early 2000s, where you try to design everything from your company and your solution. So on paper, that's great. And if you have a proper data strategy, that's actually something that can work. I've actually worked on a project like that in 1996. I was a junior developer then, but it was great experience. But even in a company that was built around data in the telecommunication sector, it was a lot of effort. Everything was new. So we didn't have 50 years history, but even that, defining that centralized data warehouse was a lot of effort. So in 1996, someone else came with a slightly different vision. And these are the two visions that still exist today. Ralph Kimball published his view on the data warehouse. So quite different. Ralph Kimball, without going into too much details, defined the notion of data marts through a bus architecture. He didn't invent the word data mart. Data marts actually existed before a data warehouse. So small databases organized typically around a department or around a function. So what he defined is, instead of building a complete data warehouse for everyone, let's build a data mart for a specific function. Let's standardize the different dimensions, the different subjects in it. So if they need to be reused in other data marts, so let's say finance, marketing, sales, we'll reuse them. So we standardize it. And as we build it out department by department, the standards will build out over time. So obviously much easier to target a specific requirements and then build your solution off of it. So that was the idea Kimball has. Over the following years, obviously, lots of data warehouse projects, even today, a lot of debate, should we go Inman, should we go Kimball today? There are different visions as well, but they all kind of take elements out of these two main strategies. And most data warehouse strategies today use both to some extent. If you look at BW and business content, I'm assuming a lot of you online know BW, but BW, SAP built models per subject. So these could be seen as Kimball data marts, where the finance data mart, which is a cube in the context of BW, and then you have your sales orders and so on. So this is really what kind of became the foundation of data warehousing. Surprisingly enough, though, I just said BW used a lot of a Kimball idea, but Inman was a consultant when BW was first built, but I'll get back to that later. Then you got big data in the 2000s. So big data, big word, very popular word, unstructured big data. So in the 2000 to 2010, mainly social media, trying to organize this, because in standard data warehouses, this is not stuff we could get organized. And then after 2010, mobile, sensor-based content, so IoT. So this is where a lot of the big data projects today come out of. So integrating all of this. So if you have unstructured data, sensors, a lot of sensors, mobility information, people moving all around, this is where big data addresses your requirements. But for most other requirements around sales, marketing, and so forth, the classic data warehouses are still a solution that really enables you to go through, but you need solutions that are a lot more agile than in the past. You cannot build a solution over a whole year. You need solutions that will enable you to evolve. And that's at that time, I'm not going to cover that subject right now, but just to show where it came out, we have SAP that launched HANA in 2011. Something happened close to the end of 2015. I'll come back to it later. Just remember the red star. I'll come back to the red star later on. And BW for HANA, at the same time, pretty much was launched. Built for the cloud, logical data warehousing, so you don't need to move your data all over the place. You can cover internet IoT, so Internet of Things. You can integrate it with big data, but basically it is a data warehouse solution. And 2019, last year, they built a version 2.0, which today, in SAP's own words, is SAP's vision of a modern packaged data warehousing solution. Keep that word in mind. We'll come back to it in a few minutes. So that was for data warehousing. Now let's talk about BW. So earlier I said BW data warehousing is 28. Well, if we look at BW or Business Warehouse from SAP, BW is 22. Although I don't know if any of you have worked on the version that came out in 98. I didn't. I started in 2004 on BW. So even that very early solution, we call it a 1.0 version. It was actually 1.0 and 2.0B for anyone who's worked on it. You didn't really want to work on it. It was really just a way of putting data in an app layer in an SAP world, okay? Very technical, not flexible at all. It was painful, but well, it was a first attempt from SAP. And considering there wasn't that much, it was either a package solution like BW or a database, and the leader at that time was Oracle. So you put your data warehouse there. Then a lot of usability improvements in 2005. So if you're looking at it, 1998 till 2005, 7 years. So during 7 years, what happened there? Well, small changes, small evolutions, added some basic functionalities over time, but a lot of business content to figure out how to bring data, how to bring value out of SAP. That's where SAP spent a lot of effort. All those extractors, anyone who knows BW, you have all those extractors in SAP. You get your data out. Well, that came out because of that investment SAP did during that time. And at some point they figured, okay, we can do a lot of stuff, but it's so painful to maintain. So anyone who's been on BW before 7.0, it was painful. If you find it's painful in 7 point something today, it was much worse in those days. So that's BW 7.0, 2005. And if you look down there, another 7 years before something else happened in the BW world. So on it, and to be 100% transparent with you, that was a bit boring, period, to be on the BW side. But one of the big advantages is we could concentrate on the solutions we were building, not getting new bells and whistles every month nowadays. So 2011, again, I showed it on the other one. We have launch of SAP HANA in 2011. Excuse me. Excuse me about that. So SAP HANA in 2011 brought a lot of changes in the SAP world. I think we've all heard it, we've all seen it. SAP keeps on saying it, so I won't say it more. But what it did is that they started rethinking BW. A lot of the components in BW were built around optimization, recopying, aggregating data, because one of the biggest complaints around BW in those days was it's so slow. The moment I have a bit of volume in there, it doesn't move. So let's improve it. So BW was pretty much the first system SAP brought in, on HANA, okay, before just about anything else. So BW 7.3, it was just same functionality, just performance. Then they started simplifying it, virtualizing some elements, simplifying it further, integrating big data scenarios, but very specific big data scenarios. That red star again in 2015, I'll come back to it later. But at the same time as BW 7.5 still needed a big revamp, that star appeared. And 2016, actually before the end of 2015, S4 HANA came out, which changed a lot of things as well. I'll come back to it later as well, because that has an impact on your data strategy. If you have S4 HANA or have S4 HANA coming up in the short term, maybe your data strategy will be different, at least on the technical side, than if you do not have S4 HANA. But so that red star came out, and S4 HANA came out 2015, and to really adjust to this evolving environment, that's when BW for HANA came out. So this is the same icon I used earlier. So BW for HANA came out 2016. Obviously, it was more of a beta in those days, but still, it was the first step into building that vision SAP has for modern data warehouse, where you can really model everything. All those functionalities that I list here were just improved in BW for HANA 2.0. And one of the big things around BW for HANA is they simplified. They simplified so much. So if you've never played with these and you're figuring out, okay, I want to go SQL data warehousing because BW is so complicated, that may not be the best reasoning pattern. You may still decide to go SQL data warehousing, but that shouldn't be your main decision, because complexity was one of the other issues. Once you've solved performance, at least partially, well, then you needed to simplify. You see it. I remember just a few years ago, simple. I think simple was a big keyword from SAP, pretty much around here, 2013, 14, I think. So now we have SAP's vision for modern package data warehousing solution, BW for HANA 2.0. Now you have that. But there's, at the same time as all of this came, and we've been building it for so long, we finally have a good vision. That's 22, I said, because we're in 2020 now. So 22 years of evolution to really have a solution that really helps you in your data warehousing solution. But that star happened. What is that star? One of the challenges with all of this is always data access, how to provide flexible data access to your users. They need to have the proper drivers installed. They need to have the proper tools installed. There's always so much maintenance to do just for people to have it. Oh, you're on that version of Windows. Well, you can have that Java driver, so we need to update you. Oh no, we can't update you because you have that other tool. So such a pain, but I've seen it so often. I'm sure some of you feel it. Then lengthy time to value. Let's ask something to the BW. Oh no, let's not do that. We won't get something before next year. So, and it's a black box for most users. You request something, it gets in a file somewhere, and you get an answer at some point. So it takes a lot of time. Real time it has improved with BW for HANA. So that one's been worked on, but still, there's still quite a bit of effort to do on this end. And finally, I think that one of the biggest ones, high entry cost. Some of you today are probably thinking, okay, maybe I want to go to BW for HANA. If I go back to the previous slide, I put a line here with a little arrow at the bottom. I didn't mention it earlier. What I'm kind of showing with this here is this, even though BW for HANA is the logical successor to BW 7.5, it is not the legal successor. What do I mean? Well, what I mean here is that if you have a BW 7.5 license, you do not have a BW for HANA license by default. In the past, you could always upgrade. But here, you cannot. This is a new solution. BW for HANA, you need to buy that new solution. It's really built for data warehousing. They simplified it a lot. I'll get back to it. But you need to buy a new solution. And, well, HANA is not cheap, although there are some it's gone down a lot. If you got a price last year, even this year is going to be lower. So that's gone down, but still a lot of investment before you even start delivering your first BW model. So high entry cost, and that applies as well for SQL data warehousing. So if we're talking about SQL data warehousing on HANA or any competing solution, you need to set up your servers, you need all of this. And that's where that little star come up. I'm sure a lot of people have figured out what I'm getting to, is cloud data warehousing. So cloud data warehousing really started in 2013 with Amazon Redshift. Amazon Redshift is a database in the cloud, very flexible. It's actually, I don't remember, I think it's PostgreSQL database that was converted for Amazon in the cloud. So it wasn't built for the cloud, but they clearly adapted it starting 2013. And the idea was to get people to shift from the red in their data warehouse. I'll let you figure out which company logo is red. SAP is blue, so that's not it. But 2 years later, the cloud data warehousing was further reinvented by Snowflake. So a lot of you have heard about Snowflake. Snowflake, again, is database as a service. So you have a database in the cloud, and put data in it, you can model it, it's highly flexible, it's highly elastic in the sense that you want it in a small piece, just put a bit of data, won't cost you as much, but as you add data, it's going to use more. They really reinvented the whole thing, and today they're taking that market by storm, even though obviously Amazon is not staying behind. And the new trend is database as a service. Put a little Dilbert, it's always nice to put a little bit of Dilbert in the presentation. So obviously now these are the two innovators in this market. So how do you catch up? What do you do? So do you try to match? This is pretty much what's being said here, and from what we can read, it's not the best idea. So for data warehouse cloud, what SAP did is, yes, they see it has to be in the cloud, but we can't just take BW, put in the cloud. Although that seemed to be the strategy we're taking initially. If you look at data warehouse cloud, it's different. It's collaborative, so both for IT and business, so they can actually talk together. It's the same interface. A guy in IT who just wants to do what he typically did in his Access database can go in there and kind of reorganize a bit the data that was put there by IT. So very collaborative, and it can integrate with BW. So if your bulk of your data is still on-prem, and typically that's still going to be the case today, well, you can integrate with it. It's fast. It's on HANA, obviously. So I don't think there's anything from SAP that's not coming out that's not on HANA today. But you have HANA without buying a HANA server. A bit similar to the Analytics Cloud for those of you who have looked at it. You get a member, you get some accounts, but you have HANA when you need it. If not, there could be a lot of companies using that same infrastructure, so it really lowers costs end to end. And this is where they decided to go a bit different. The two companies I mentioned earlier, they went for a database in the cloud that can do data warehouse and add functionalities. Data warehouse cloud, I think the word kind of says it, is a data warehouse built in the cloud. So it's not a purely database solution. So you have the ETL portion. You can bring your data in. Right now, obviously, limited in terms of sources, but that they're putting a lot of effort in there. You model your data, and then you analyze it. Analytics Cloud is part of Data Warehouse Cloud. So you have two of leading solutions from SAP in the BI world that are on one solution, and it's elastic. So that's one of the big gains I find from cloud solutions, any of them. It's the elasticity. You need something smaller, you can start building, and as it grows bigger and as price goes lower at the same time, you can decide to assign more and more data to it. So you have your Data Warehouse Cloud, you have BW4, or you can do SQL Data Warehouse. Where should you go? First of all, I said earlier, BW4 has been simplified. I won't spend too much time on that slide. Anyone who's been looking at what's coming out for BW4 over the past, well, since 2016 actually, I've seen that slide. It's just that a lot of the objects you had to manage before have been summarized in 4, and even 4 in my mind, it's really 1. You do everything in that object here, and you can use the other ones depending on your requirements. You model your data in your advanced data store object. Info objects, it's your dimensions. You can or decide not to use them depending on how you want to get organized, because a lot of time spent in BW when you were using non-SAP data was spent modeling all those info objects. Lots of time wasted in some cases when there's no added value. So now you can just use a field directly. No need to create an info object. So it really simplifies your data modeling, while at the same time giving you all the infrastructure you need to manage, organize, and deliver your data warehouse. So, oh, I forgot to change my subtext, the title. So BW4 HANA and SQL Data Warehousing, the two big comparisons. I'll get back to Data Warehouse Cloud. It's not yet a 100% complete solution. It needs these two for any advanced data warehousing strategies, although it can cover some simple ones already, but I'll get back to that. So your two big data warehouse solutions today you can use in the SAP world is BW4 HANA and SAP SQL Data Warehousing on HANA as well. So when you go with BW4 HANA, it's an application-driven approach, a bit similar to what you have in the old BW, so your business content, pre-packaged end-to-end approach with built-in best practices, a lot more flexible, so much easier to adjust than in the past. You can be live within a week or two. Well, once you've set up BW4, it's on-premise, so you get your servers, you install it, you make sure all your connections work. So that's an implementation project all by itself. But once you have the infrastructure, in 2 weeks, you can have a working model with all your data. And I'm saying 2 weeks, that's to be conservative. I've done it in just 2 days, in some cases, depending on what your requirements are. So it goes much faster, but obviously, if you have ABAP in-house experience, it's going to help a lot. Okay, anyone who goes in BW, you need to learn a bit of ABAP to understand what it's doing. If your landscape is very SAP-centric, it's obviously having BW4 HANA is going to keep it simple. And you already use BW on HANA. You already have that expertise. You're actually going to love BW4 HANA in this context. If you're already used to BW, if you even love BW, that doesn't always happen. But if it's a bit limited, well, BW4 HANA is really something that can really, you'll feel the value it brings compared to this. And it's all now on an Eclipse environment for development, so you no longer go into a SAP GUI with that clunky interface that was never built for data warehousing. Second option, SQL data warehousing. So higher level of freedom to build custom data models. So you build whatever you want, model it the way you want. And it's actually a great way to go if you are replacing a third-party data warehouse solution on, let's say, competing solutions. So in this case, you can just copy SQL, maybe some adjustments depending on the language, the version of SQL that was used in the other one. There are industry data models that are provided by SAP that can simplify implementing it, but obviously not limited to SAP landscapes. So that's an interesting one. Obviously, if you have existing in-house SQL expertise, no ABAP experience at all in this, this could be an easy solution. If you mainly have non-SAP source systems and SQL expertise, yeah, well, the decision is going to be much simpler. Although I'd argue for BW4, even in that context, I actually love the simplification it brings, the easy way it can build a data warehouse solution. But having come from a SQL world, if you do not know BW, you'll probably find it simpler going this way. And anyways, a lot of it going forward in the next few years are probably going to move to the cloud. So either solutions, you're probably going to have another transition still, because that whole world on premise is evolving, and you may want to move some of that data to the cloud very shortly. So today, if you do a typical SAP rollout, this is what you get. SAP Analytics Cloud, you have your S4 Analytics, and yeah, when you actually implement your whole environment, typical project, they decide, oh, let's not go with that. Let's see what we can do with the embedded analytics, which is actually quite great. I've done quite a few projects on S4 HANA embedded analytics with business objects, non-SAP solutions, SAP Analytics Cloud. But at some point, depending on your requirement, a data warehouse is still going to be required. There are a lot of things like keeping their history, keeping different versions of data, that those you cannot do when you're live on your operational data. So you still need a data warehouse. But in those cases, you may want to ask yourself, do I need an on-prem data warehouse? Or is this going to be something I could easily do in the cloud? Because still, most of my data is going to be in my S4 environment, and just some very specific use cases, I'll need to bring them in the cloud. And this is a question you can ask yourselves today. So it really depends on what your scenario is. Is it a complex scenario, data warehouse scenario, where you need to bring in a lot of data from multiple sources? You may still need your on-prem data warehouse. I'm actually, I don't remember the date. I should have written it down, but I'm doing another webinar in a few months, I think in August, but I'm not too sure, about data warehouse cloud specifically. So that could be another interesting one to see how far you can go with data warehouse cloud, which obviously we won't be covering today. And this is really the strategy as it goes today with SAP. This is a copy paste from an SAP slide. Figured this is what they're saying, the direction they're taking. So might as well use what they built. So you can today you can have data warehouse cloud with HANA Cloud or not, because you can have HANA as a database as a service in the cloud. But honestly, if you want to build a data warehouse, unless you want to integrate with solutions that are not part of what SAP Data Warehouse Cloud does, you may want to put that in between. But if not, go directly on the SAP SQL Data Warehousing, BW for HANA, or S4 HANA, which is not in this logo, and have some summarized data in Data Warehouse Cloud. So this is really the overall strategy. So today, although if we go back 98 when BW came out, you hardly had any choices in the SAP world. Today, you have all your choices. It really depends on what's your strategy, what's your data strategy, what do you want to do with that data, how much data will you need in that data warehouse to answer those strategic needs, and also what's your in-house expertise today, and where do you see it going? Will it be heavily ABAP? Maybe you'll want to go BW4. Is it going to be heavily SQL? Or maybe you'll want to stay this way. Or you just need small subsets. Maybe you'll want to go data warehouse cloud. And as time goes by, obviously, larger volumes are going to be easier to maintain in the cloud. That was the end of the presentation of my slides. Now I'm actually going to go into data warehouse cloud. But before I do, Lauren, are there any questions in the chat?
No questions right now, Eric, but I'm sure a couple will come through at the end.
Perfect. So let me see, where did I put my browser? So Lauren, you see my screen still?
Yep, I can see it.
Perfect, thank you. So data warehouse cloud, quick demo. We have 5 minutes. So I'll go in. So you get into data warehouse cloud. One of the big advantages I find in here is you can really set it up as a departmental. Okay, now I want to go home. Let's go to home. So you get in, and then when you go here, you have all those paces. So many people You can define spaces by department, by business analysts, people who are comfortable building their access databases, give them a space to work in here in Data Warehouse Cloud today. So they'll actually be able to use that space. You assign them a certain volume, certain space, and they can start playing in it. So in my case, I have my Simplify. So I can thank SAP for this server here. So I have my Simplify with a bit of space. So obviously I'm not using a lot today. So if I go in my space, this I have here, I could increase it if I have the rights. How much of it is going to be on disk? How much of it is going to be on memory? Obviously memory costs more. So I may not want to put too much when I'm testing, but when I'm providing it for end users, maybe I'll want to do it, I want to change it. So what's a priority as well on the server. So who has access to this space? There's a whole security side I won't cover today. There's all your local connections. So here I'm connected on a HANA database. I'm connected to a generic OData, so Northwind. Anyone who's been in BI a while, we've all seen the Northwind database. I think it's from that other company that does databases. They use it a lot as a sample. And you can create other connections. So ABAP, that would be a BW, HANA database, SQL Server, OData, Oracle. And whoops, I meant okay. Always do that. So I have these connections. So that's quite nice, but you're probably figuring, okay, yeah, but I have so many other systems. They're small, so Data Warehouse Cloud could probably work, but how do I put data in there? And that's, in my mind, the openness that SAP has brought to this solution. I find it impressive. Here, you can kind of open your database schema so it can actually be seen from outside. So here I created a database schema that works with OpenSQL standards. So you can plug just about any ETL that supports OpenSQL standards. Honestly, if you have an ETL tool that does not cover OpenSQL standards, there's an issue because they're open a lot. It's pretty much basic SQL. Can use it. Can use standard SQL like dbeaver. dbeaver. Anyone who has worked on open source databases, dbeaver is a database management tool. You log into this, can start playing with that database because you've actually enabled OpenSQL schema. They can insert, they can read, so you can use third-party solutions to read and load the data in your data warehouse. Once you have done that, this is where you can start modeling everything. Obviously, I won't have much time to show you all the details. Here, I've imported a few tables, okay? So these tables here, you can actually see they're remote tables. So those are tables that are on a HANA server, could be OData, that are still on that server. I'm only going to read them when I open them. So if I don't open them, there's no space being used on my server. I could replicate close to real time, but here I want to read data from quite a few multiple places. And then as IT, this is as far as we go in my mind would be you define your sales model. Well, in my case, it was sales. Your data model. So I have it here. You can go and change it, make a few changes to how it is right now. That was done. Define all those links. So when the business user comes in, database schema is done. But still, the business user could decide, okay, let's actually, I have a new table I want to link in there. They can create their own new relationship model with, let's say they don't have the rights to change yours, but they can copy it, add in some tables. They may have brought in manually with some data. Remember, you can control how much space they can use, so they can import the CSV file in it. Or if they are very comfortable with SQL, they can literally come here. So here I have a sales view that was created. So that's a sales view. You bring your tables. The links actually worked automatically when we go at the links section because I already defined it in the entity relationship model. And you can preview the SQL that's here. So you have your SQL. This is generated by default. And you figure, okay, that's my starting point, but I actually have a lot of calculations in that interface. I don't understand it. So you can come in here if you're comfortable with SQL, and if my copy paste worked, you have your SQL here, and now I can actually do a data preview. this is reading the data in the HANA database that's on premise, and this is a result of MySQL. And I can start playing with it, doing adjustment, group bys. It's OpenSQL, so I can really adjust it, copy paste it elsewhere, can start playing with my data, and it adds a whole lot of flexibility. And in the end, I said earlier, you have Analytics Cloud in this same environment. So you come here, and this is a trimmed down Analytics Cloud interface. You can plug in another Analytics Cloud to it, but this is the embedded one. Excuse me. You come here, I won't demo Analytics Cloud, we're out of time, but this is where you'd have your analytical data set. In my case, it's a sales view we just saw. That's a sales view that was generated just by linking tables that are still in another database. I used HANA. Imagine SQL Server. Imagine Oracle. Imagine something else you're loading with your ETL. So right now, obviously, it's cloud. So for low entry points, you can really do proof of concepts on it, can build solutions for very targeted KPIs. And as it evolves, as cloud solution pricing goes down over time, you can make it grow or put data back in your on-premise environment. And this is all managed through just a simple monitor where you decide, okay, that table, I use it a lot. I want it to be replicated. The other ones stay remote. The performance is good for what I'm doing today. So that's all the time we had for and the data warehouse cloud demonstration. We only have 2 minutes left. So any questions, or else we're going to close it. Don't hesitate. Since we have 2 minutes, I'm just going to bring it to the next one. Don't hesitate to reach out to contact@simplifysolutions.com. This will get directly into Lauren's mailbox, and she'll gladly involve me or anyone else from the Simplify team, depending on the kind of questions you have. So thank you very much, and I hope you appreciated this. Lauren, nothing came up on the chat? Everyone's still being shy about asking questions?
Yeah, everyone's being shy.
Okay, so that's good. Well, thank you very much. And if some of you were to need any assistance, Simplify also has an offering around the business warehouse health check. If, for example, you are thinking, maybe should I go to HANA? I don't know, I'm not too sure. We really can help you figure out what you have, what's the gap between what you have and being ready for HANA. And also at the same time, we'll bring in some pointers as to maybe some ways to optimize the way you manage your data, your business warehouse solution. Okay, so do not hesitate, contact us, and we'll gladly get into a discussion on the subjects. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.